In recent weeks, I've been producing a few videos on POC platforms as an alternative to Zello for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I find Zello to be fiddly on some devices, not this one as it has a large screen, and we'll be looking at this handset in more detail in another video. Secondly, nobody seems to be showing us in any great detail what global PTT and real PTT are actually like, how they work, what they involve, and the cost. I made a video on these POC devices from Anyseku that run on real PTT, and these devices that run on global PTT, and have received a lot of comments from viewers on this whole subject. So I thought we'd look at some of these comments as well as the difference between global PTT and real PTT versus Zello and also VHF and UHF two-way radio. Before I carry on, the main comment was that these devices are basically a phone and need a SIM card to work. I know this, I actually said it numerous times in the videos and showed you how they work. I make no money from the sales of these devices or platforms and don't sell any of them myself. I just like to promote the whole POC thing because I love two-way comms. Another point I should probably make is that the devices leaning towards the global PTT market are aimed more at commercial users rather than hobbyists. Don't get me wrong, they're great fun testing with friends, but they're more likely to be picked up by large companies with vehicle fleets where the cost of something like this is considerably less than a mobile phone. So let's look at cost first. The handsets for global PTT range from £110 to a couple of £100 depending on what you're looking for. A Zello handset can be purchased from as little as £35 at the moment, and a Bofeng UV5R or similar models for VHF and UHF will set you back around £25 to £30. Global PTT comes free with any device you buy. If you want a platform account without a device, then there is a cost. Zello is free for life for the hobbyist, but for business users there is a cost. It does come with extra functionality, however. Two-way radio, depending on the frequencies you use, requires either an amateur radio license or other forms of licensing, which do come at a cost. There are, however, free bands that can be utilised in most countries under certain sets of rules. The main difference between global PTT and Zello is different SIM card requirements. A global PTT handset won't support Wi-Fi, so you have to have a SIM card. They run on preloaded Linux-based platforms that can't be modified to run on Wi-Fi. Zello, on the other hand, runs on Android devices such as this, which are highly customizable and will work on Wi-Fi. SIM cards cost as little or as much as you're prepared to pay. The data usage on POC devices is around 12 to 45 kilobytes per second based on my research, so a little data will go a long way. I use a 3SIM which I pay £9 a month for and get 20 gigabytes of data. This is used for both global PTT and Zello devices, and when I'm at home, my Zello devices run on Wi-Fi. The handsets on both platforms will work on different networks, so data SIMs that use multiple networks are suitable. Global PTT also have SIM plans as well. Of course, the Bofeng doesn't require a SIM card. Next is programming. As I said earlier, the Linux-based global PTT devices don't support programming as such. Some allow PC programming to make minor tweaks, but they're designed so everything is set up to work out of the box as soon as a SIM card is inserted. All settings can be accessed from the front of the radio. The Zello devices on Android, however, are highly customizable. The main issue is that the majority of them run old versions of Android such as 6 and 8. Some of the Ulefone devices I've tested do run on Android 13, however. The Bofeng UV5R can of course be fully programmed using software and a cable. Ease of use is another big topic. When specifically talking about Zello, I find it clunky and difficult to use, especially if you're using a device that has a tiny screen, or even worse, no touchscreen capability at all. To add contacts, channels and set up groups can be challenging on devices like this, so I prefer to do it all on Windows first on my desktop and then sign in on the device. Global PTT has a website that allows you to add IMEI numbers and set up groups, so when you save what you input and restart the device, it'll automatically log on to your platform in the group you've selected, so it's much easier than Zello from that point of view. The menu-based system on the UV5R is worth getting to know in detail before you take it out and start using it. There's a lot of options, so learning what they all do is beneficial. In the simplest terms, however, if you gave it to somebody unfamiliar with two-way radio and told them just to type in a frequency they need to use, they'd probably manage it. Another point raised was aftercare. If for some reason Global PTT or any of the other big companies cease to exist, you're pretty much screwed. You could reflash your device to be used with something like Real PTT or another company, but it's not a simple thing to do for somebody using these in their business. If Zello disappeared, however, all of your Android devices would still work, and there's lots of PTT applications out there to use instead. The Bofeng is so cheap you could just throw it away and get a new one if you had any issues. Looking at multi-use flexibility, and this is something that divides the Global PTT and Zello devices even further. The Global PTT handsets only do Global PTT, nothing else. For a company using hundreds of these with employees that aren't hobbyists, they're great. The employee can simply switch on his radio and it'll work. No bells, no whistles, nothing that's going to confuse. The Android devices used by Zello, however, have many more functions such as phone call capability, a camera, and they run most Play Store apps, and for that reason they have greater functionality. The good old Bofeng just does one thing. As for device flexibility, there is a limited but growing number of handsets available for Global PTT and the likes at the moment, and as it grows, more will come onto the market. The amount of Android handsets out there is huge, so you'd never be short of options. For Zello, you can just use any mobile phone, which isn't an option for Global PTT. For both cheap and expensive two-way radios, well, there's hundreds and hundreds of options out there. Now let's look at frequencies. The Global PTT and Zello devices all work on 3G and 4G, with some Android devices now starting to use 5G. Of course, this is limiting because they rely on a network. If the cellular networks are running and you have signal, you can talk to the person next door or somebody on the other side of the world. If they go down, that's it, you're stuck with a useless brick. Something like a Bofeng, however, will work, or at least at short distances. You could argue that depending on the application, there are instances when these could become useless as well. If you're using a repeater and that goes down, you may struggle to make contact. If you have no power and can't charge it, you're also stuck with a brick. However, it is true that there is far less dependency on infrastructure with a VHF and UHF two-way handheld when compared to a POC device. I did get a couple of comments comparing these PTT handsets to the old iDen and Nextel service from Motorola. This is actually a different concept altogether because those devices use SIM cards to make phone calls and then a separate two-way radio inside that used frequency hopping technology that made them impossible to monitor on a scanner. If you'd like to know more about iDen, then I'll put a link to that video below. So that's my comparison between Global PTT, Zello and two-way radio. Let me know if there's any points you think I may have missed. It's always good to get a discussion going on topics like this. If you'd like to see more on any of these devices, then I'll leave a link to a network radio playlist in the description below.